This is KM Weiland, and you're listening to the 327th episode of the Helping Writers Become Authors podcast. So, here's an important question for you. What would you like to learn from me? I am totally pumped to announce that I'm finally about to do something I've been promising you for a long time. I'm putting together a full-fledged course on writing. This is going to be a huge project, much more in depth than anything I've been able to share in the blog posts, books, or webinars that I've done in the past, and I want to make certain that I'm meeting your most urgent needs. So I need to know what specific topic you would like me to cover. Right now, I've narrowed it down to the 3 writing topics I feel are most important. Number 1, outlining your novel. Number 2, structuring your novel. And number 3, crafting powerful character arcs. So, which topic would you find most helpful in taking your writing to the next level? Your input is super important to me, so please jump by my site at helpingwritersbecomeauthors.com and hit the contact button to vote on your favorite or to suggest something entirely different. Whichever topic gets the most votes is the one I'll get to work on. The latest post on my blog is the number 1 problem with backstory and its simple fix. Discover the number 1 problem with backstory and how to ask the one question that will keep you from committing this story sin in your own writing. To find the post, visit my site at helpingwritersbecomeauthors.com. And now I hope you enjoyed this week's podcast entitled Most Common Writing Mistakes, Part 48, No Conflict Between Characters. I slapped the FedEx guy this morning. Okay, not really. My FedEx guy is totally cool, and he brings me cool stuff. I would never slap him. But that got your attention, didn't it? Way more so than if I'd said I thanked the FedEx guy this morning. The difference between the 2 accounts, of course, is conflict. You may not have thought well of me for slapping that poor undeserving FedEx guy, but I guarantee you would have been interested. Conflict isn't nice, but it's inevitably interesting. And yet, writers sometimes create scenes in which there is no interpersonal conflict between their characters. The result, of course, is that everyone's happy. Except the readers, who are bored out of their minds. Here's what your story looks like with no interpersonal conflict. Geraldine walked down the road to the Averil's house. The scent of jasmine wafted all around her as she entered the yard through the trellised lich gate. Percival's sister Cordelia answered the door. She looked fetchingly splendid in her new dress of lavender organdy. She beamed. "Jerry, darling, you've come for tea after all. Percival will well be pleased. Mamma, too." Percival was going to ask Geraldine to marry him today. She just knew it. Overcome, she flung her arms around Cordelia. "Isn't it a lovely day?" Now, just assume this scene keeps playing out without a hint of irony. Geraldine and Cordelia have a simply wonderful tea time with Cordelia's simply wonderful brother Percival, who has a simply wonderful proposal in mind, after which he and Geraldine can ride off into a simply wonderful happily ever after. James Scott Bell calls this the problem of happy people in happy land. Believe me, I totally get why someone would want to write this. It's happy. All the characters are friends, they get along, they smile, they wave. There's no violence, no dissension, no fear, no sadness. Heavenly it may be, but interesting or realistic, it ain't. Here's the thing about great stories and great scenes. They revolve around 3 simple factors. Great scene factor number 1, the character wants something, a goal. Great scene factor number 2, the character runs into an obstacle on the way to his goal. This is conflict. Great scene factor number 3, the character doesn't completely get what he wants, which is a disaster. Question: what does this mini version of proper scene structure tell us? Answer: that if your character is happy from the start to the finish of your scene, you have a problem. You know, the classic trope of the perfect world that we see in movies such as Edward Scissorhands, or The Truman Show, or Horton Hears a Who. On the surface, they may all seem to be perfect examples of happy people in happy land, except, without fail, they're all just masks of irony upon worlds of deception, corruption, and pain. In other words, conflict. With that in mind, let's see if we can write Geraldine and Cordelia into a more interesting scene. Geraldine trudged down the road to the Averils' house. The scent of jasmine wafted all around her as she entered the yard through the trellised lich gate. It smelled like regret. Percival's sister Cordelia answered the door. She looked fetchingly splendid in a new dress of lavender organdy. Her expression was flat. "You're here for tea." Geraldine found she had to clear her throat. That is, I know Percival is shipping out on this afternoon's train. I wanted to say goodbye. You already did that. Oh yes, she'd done that, and more. She tossed his proposal back in his face and stormed off. But she couldn't let him go off to war without apologizing for at least that much. With Rupert missing in Flanders, Cordelia, of all people, should understand. Geraldine cleared her throat again. "May I come in, please?" Cordelia barred the doorway with her arm. "What do you think?" Now that's not quite as interesting as slapping the FedEx guy, I'll grant you. But it's a big improvement on the first example, wouldn't you say? Evaluate every single scene in your book. Does your protagonist have a specific goal in each one? Is that goal being met with resistance of some sort? Even low-key scenes in which friendly characters do nothing but chat must have some sort of undercurrent of conflict fueled by the protagonist's need to reach a goal. Otherwise, that scene isn't going to advance the plot, and worst of all, it's going to try your reader's patience. Don't make things easy for your characters. Keep them on their toes by challenging them in all their relationships. This does not mean every character has to have it out for your protagonist, but it does mean every character must have his own personal agenda, and that agenda shouldn't line up perfectly with your protagonist's. So give it a try. Not only will you hook your readers, you'll also have all the more fun writing these fascinating scenes. Thank you for listening to the Wordplay Podcast. To read a transcript of this episode, you can visit my website at helpingwritersbecomeauthors.com. And be sure to check back again next week.